What is up, friends? Welcome back to the last day in the 2023 12 Days of Christmas video series. Today's video is a reusable shopping bag, but make it stylish. It's basically an unlined tote bag, but I have been pining to make one of these for so long because I use reusable shopping bags every time I go to the store, and I hope that y'all do too. Plastic bags are terrible. I'll get off my soapbox. Anyways, I've really wanted to make one of these forever and ever and ever. And I mean, why not now? What better time than now, right? So I started out, I made that guy right there, and it was just like a touch smaller than what I think, like that would totally work if you were just running in, running out, not grabbing a ton of stuff. I think that's more of like the farmer's market bag, but this big lady, she is for the shopping trip. So she measures 13 inches wide with a 6-inch gusset by 12, or not gusset, 6-inch depth by 12 inches tall. So she can fit a lot of stuff in here. I made it so that the shoulder straps are nice and comfortable. You don't have to like do any sort of crazy maneuvers to get it on. So it's like a nice, easy drop amount. But my favorite part of this bag is these little handles. So I added little grab handles on the inside that you can hold like so, and then they just fold in and out of the way whenever they're not in use. And I just think that is the cutest little design element. I've been wanting to put that into a pattern for a really long time. So again, why not this one? I think that it's great because a lot of times when the bag isn't super stuffed full, you don't need to carry it on the shoulder, or if you're just grabbing it out of the back, you know, whatever. I think that grab handles as well as shoulder straps can be equally as useful, and so I incorporated them in this one. So this is a raw bag on the inside. With a little bit of ingenuity, you could get the measurements and cut out a lining and totally add it in, and I would recommend doing that in the step we're gonna fold over toward the very end of the video where you fold over this top lip twice, and I would just tuck it right up in there whenever you're stitching the handles in. If I was going to add a lining, that is when I would do it. You can easily dress this bag up. You could dress it down. You could do all cotton, but you're going to have to bind your inside edges if you do that, because I just show you how to stitch them over to one side. You can make it in all cork, you can make it in all vinyl, you can make it in leather, you can make it in anything that you want. This bag is super duper versatile. This is just a fantastic starting off point for a pretty typical standard tote bag, and the possibilities are truly endless. For mine, I used wax canvas. I got this from Fabric Funhouse. I don't remember the color, but it's there. I love it because it actually shows whenever you crumple up wax canvas, it holds those creases until it gets super hot, and then the wax kind of like it melts back out and all of those creases go away. But I used wax canvas, I used black cork, I got this fun tag from Heartwood and Hide, and then my webbing is from Zipper Valley. Of course, love them. Yeah, I think that is really about it. It was a super fun make. Like I said, I accidentally made that one first, so the second video came along a little bit better. There was one minor snafu, and the whole reason that I had to do a second video is because I messed up my math on the boxed corners, and much to my chagrin, I did it again in the second video. So you're welcome. As I'm talking through the video, I will flash some text, or I will make a quick video where I pop in and explain to you how to do it correctly so that you do not end up in the position that I was in. But as you can tell, 2 bags, they still ended up getting made and they look great. So it all works out in the end. This, just like the other bags in this series, if you play with the proportions, you can change the size of the bag. So go for it, play around. These are great projects to practice with and to get your feet wet with changing and designing and putting more thought into what you need in a bag and not necessarily what everybody else designs. So I hope that you really enjoy it. Thanks again for following along on this 12 Days of Christmas, and I will see you at the end of the video. So let's go ahead and get all of our pieces cut out and ready to go. We are going to need 2 straps. These are going to be the shoulder straps. They're going to be 45 inches long, and I'm using 1-inch wide woven webbing from Zipper Valley. And then these are going to be the inside handles. These are 10 inches long. This wax canvas is going to be my top piece, and it is 20 inches wide by 11 inches tall. And then my base is 20 inches wide by 13 inches tall. And to get started, we're going to grab our top section. So for me, my wax canvas. You can tell it's been creased up and been sitting in my stash for a while. We're going to lay our long straps, our shoulder straps, onto the piece and get this sewn into place first. So go ahead and line it up on your cutting mat, and you're going to lay the strap 5 inches in from this left side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm lining up the outside edge on the 5-inch mark. I'm going to I'm going to clip this into place. And then I'm going to follow that up and just clip it up here as well so that it can maintain the straight line there. If you have some sew tights, that would be perfect for right there. And then being sure that your strap is not twisted, we're going to repeat that on this other edge over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then repeat that for your other top panel and your other shoulder strap. Clips. Here we go. All right, now we're going to head to our machine and we're going to stitch up and across and back down. And I'm going to do 2 lines of stitching here just for added durability. I'm going to stitch up 9 inches from this bottom edge and come across right there. So mark it with a pen so that you know where to make the turn. There we go. All right, let's go get these bad boys stitched. I'm using Amann Tech 70 thread and a size 18 needle with the size 4 stitch length. All right, we've got both of our straps added to our front panels, and we're going to move these out of the way for now and make some cuts on our base. So from the back, turn it to where the short side is facing you. And we're going to find our center. It didn't take very long to get to the portion of the video where I messed up the math. So I'm going to show you on this piece of paper the correct math. So imagine that this is my black cork, this is my base, the giant piece, okay? So this is the short edge of the base, here is the long edge. What we're going to do is find our middle section, or what is it called? Find your center line. That's what it's called. Find your center line along this short edge here. And then I'm just going to call this the left edge because it's the left side. Don't ask me, this is my second time filming this because I called that my right side. Because the answer is yes. So on your left edge, you're going to measure over 3 inches on that center line. 3 inches. And then from that center line, you're going to measure up 2.5 inches. And then again, from that center line, measure down 2.5 inches. So in total, this measurement is going to be 5 inches. You're going to cut out a rectangle out of the side of your panel that is 3 inches wide by 5 inches long. You're going to do that on both sides, the left and the right hand side. I really hope that that's not confusing. Obviously, this is not to scale. Godspeed. Alrighty, now that we have that ready and prepped, our base is done and we get to attach it to our top panels. So starting with one, we're just going to lay it right side down on the base, line up this long bottom edge and clip it into place. And now we're going to go to the machine. We're going to stitch across the bottom at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to fold this up and then top stitch it. And I'm going to do 2 lines of top stitching just like I did on my webbing. It's kind of hard to see on the webbing, but you can see it on the inside. And that way it just has more durability and cohesiveness with the rest of the bag. I will be taking this top section over as well, because once I get done with that, I'm just going to repeat it on the opposite side. Now, I always like to stitch from my cork side. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's just I'm used to the texture and the way that it sews. But I'm lining up this edge on my 1/2 inch mark. And then when I get to my webbing, I'm adding extra stay stitches there. Now these panels are rather large, so if you need to, you can use your left arm and lay it across the weight of the bag and help move the entire panel through as you're sewing. So now when I am folding this, I'm folding this down, I'm folding the base of it down, and I'm keeping both of these folds toward the base as well, because I'm going to top stitch on top of my cork here. So I'm just going to finger press it out of the way, give it a nice little press here, and then we'll top stitch. I always top stitch at 1/8 of an inch, and then I'll be top stitching that second line as well. I feel like I'm playing Bob and Chicken right now. I know I'm going to run out at some point. It's the only downfall of matching my bobbin thread to my upper thread is, since the thread is so thick, it doesn't have nearly as much or go for as long as a thin thread. All right, and so now, if you look at the back, you should have all of your stitches, or all of those stitch lines now will go almost to the very bottom of that fold, holding it in place while it's being used. I'm going to trim off these threads. Since this is a raw interior bag, I don't want any rogue threads hanging out. And while I'm over here, I'm just going to go ahead and repeat that process with this panel. Alrighty, so this is what our, excuse me, this is what our assembled bag looks like so far. And before we move on to closing up the sides, I want to go ahead and mark my fold lines for at the very end of the bag. It's just easier to do it now than it is to do it later. Look, I added my tag off camera and I won Bobbin Chicken. Today is my lucky day. Amazing. So I'm going to be folding this over a 1/2 inch and then another 1/2 inch and just making marks all across my panel here. If it's, depending on what textile you're using, you might just want to make lines or, you know, draw lines there. But because wax canvas is so good about holding its shape or creating creases, I can get by with just folding it around a sharp edge. Not sharp, but straight edge. And I'm not going to be super duper precious with this, but I do want it to be as even, you know, as I can make it. Just so that way my edges meet up nicely. And so what I'm trying to do here is just line up on that 1/2 inch line on my ruler, and then I'm folding it up and around. And as you can see, it creates a nice crease line here. But it'd probably be just as easy to mark like that, and then I can come back and fold as well. Oh yeah, that's much easier. I always forget that when you use wax canvas, if you draw on it with a pen like this, it kind of creates a perfect little fold line because it makes an indentation. And then it'll go exactly where you want it to. So I'm just going to do the first 1/2 inch fold mark because now that this is folded as a 1/2 inch, I know that the next one I'll just be folding around this piece. Seems like my panel is a little funky over here, but that's fine. Okay. Alrighty, so now we can fold our 2 panels right sides together. We're going to clip down both sides here. This bag is so big, it's like taking up the whole frame. But I always like to start with lining up these edges here. All right, so now that we've got those lined up, I can throw some clips in up the whole panel. Now you don't need this to be folded down. You can certainly leave it folded down if you want to and stitch across it, and then we'll just fold again, or you can unstitch it and fold it after we stitch it this way. So it's up to you. Choose your own adventure. I'm just going to unfold it because that's the way that I always do it. But there's nothing wrong with leaving it folded down. I would try it both ways for you on the same bag, but then I'd probably end up messing it up somehow, so. All right, so now we're gonna go to the machine. We're gonna stitch up our sides on the left and the right, and then we're gonna push out our box bottoms and sew those as well. I'll be stitching these at a 1/2 inch and this at a 1/2 inch down here once I get them folded onto each other. right, so we're going to reach inside and push our bottom together. Line up your lines. I like to butterfly my stitch or my seam open here. And then we're going to stitch this at a 1/2 inch as well. All right, so this is what we've got so far. She's starting to take shape here. Now this next step is totally optional. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I don't really like to trim these edges or the seam allowance down because it is going to be a bag that will have a lot of weight in it. And so I don't want to lessen the amount of fabric that is on here. So what I'm going to do is butterfly this seam open, and I'm going to stitch down both sides of it on both sides of the bag. Feel free to skip this if you want to. It is not a requirement. I've made other ones that I don't do this on and they're perfectly fine. But because this one is such a giant bag, you have enough room and leeway to do this step. So if you want to, go for it. If not, don't worry about it. It does add some cool contrast stitching as well. So I'm just going to lay the bag to where I have the right side of the bag on the bed of my sewing machine. First, I should have butterflied this open. Alternatively, you can also just stitch to one side as well instead of two. Actually, I'm actually going to do that. So in order to stitch to one side, you do need to, because we butterflied this open, you need to snip one side of it so that they can both lay like so. Okay, so now slide this bad boy all the way up. I don't know how much you can see, and I apologize for that. And so you have two options. You can start here where the cork starts and save yourself some heartache, or you can go all the way down to the bottom and stitch it. Then if you do go all the way down to the bottom, just be aware of how thick that seam is where all the cork is folded. There we go. I'm just going to do that on this side as well. And I'm just kind of putting even pressure, not pulling on it, but I am applying some weight here just to make sure that the seam is pulled nice and taut as I'm stitching it. And that way everything stays nice and straight as well. There we go. Now we have reinforced seams. Okay, we are getting somewhere. So now what we need to do is with this fold line that we created earlier, I'll put my straps inside the bag, but with this fold line that we created, we're gonna go ahead and follow that crease mark. And I find that's easier if you just get it going around the whole bag first. And you're gonna have to recrease it over the seam now. But because we did it in the last step, it just makes it a little easier to do now. Otherwise, we'd have to be measuring and folding now, and take my word for it, this is a lot easier. So can see here where my panels didn't quite meet up, so I'm just going to snip that off, just that one little area to even it up. And then now I can create that next fold. And I'm just folding it over right on itself, right where it naturally wants to fold around this first 1/2 inch fold. There we go. Okay. Last thing that we need to do before we stitch around this top rim that we just folded is we need to add our grab handles in here. And so using these stitch lines that we have, we're going to figure out where we want to place them. So I'm just going to grab my little ruler here. And so my handles are 8 inches apart. And I find that a comfy grab is about 4 to 5 inches apart. So if you want it to be a little closer, you can do it that way. If you want it to be a little bit wider, you can do it that way. It's totally up to you. So I'm going to go at 5 inches apart. So, and that's 5 inches. I'm putting the outer edge on 5 inches. So okay, so, oh, 4 inches. Sorry. I just made one of these a few minutes ago. You'd think I would have remembered that, but no. So basically I'm coming 1 inch. No, that's not right. I'm crazy. 1.5 inch from the inside of our shoulder strap here. And so these are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm not crazy. So they are 5 inches apart on the outermost side, but if you're measuring from your shoulder straps, you're 1.5 inch and 1.5 inch. So clip those really well so that they don't shift. And then we're going to attach this one to this side. And then for this one, you can kind of feel where the other ones are. I can see where the double clips as well. And then we'll just measure just to be sure. And yep, pretty darn close. So I'm just going to leave it. It was only off by about 1/16 of an inch. All right, and now we are ready to go back to the machine, and we are going to top stitch around this entire top rim, and we're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch from this bottom edge. And then if you want to, you can also add a second line of stitching just for continuity like the rest of the bag. Oh, what am I doing? So this can be a little finicky because, oh, okay, clips are flying. Because I want to stitch where I can see this part of the bag, so you can flip it right side out, or you can just kind of struggle through it like you're about to watch me do. Totally up to you. But if you do it like this, you're just going to have to flip this top rim out to where you can see it, and just be mindful of where your shoulder straps are. You don't want to accidentally sew over them. And then of course I'm going to add some extra stay stitches once I start stitching over this webbing here. So get any threads trimmed that are left over in here. If you want to, you can trim down your bottom edge. I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it just like it is because it'll just, over time, it'll settle in and seat properly, and so I'm not concerned with it. But without further ado, oh wait, hold on. Gotta clip this guy. Let's flip her out. Push out your corners. If you wanted to, you could do some bias tape over those bottom corners, and that would add even more structure to them as well. And then it would finish them off. I'm really happy that I decided to do that stitch down the side. I think it looks really cool. It'll definitely add some durability in the long run. And then to crease your base, you can just, you'll see it'll want to like push out on its own. You can just finger press it like this, and it will start to take its shape. Ta-da! Oh, wait, let's check out the inside handles. This is my favorite part, little carry handles. So cute. So the last thing that I do want you to consider, and this is totally up to you, but I have seen and in my experience in bags that I have owned and used, especially for rough housing, you know, just tossing them around, throwing them here and there, is these straps. If your bag is in the back seat, say one of the straps is stuck on something and you grab it by this strap and you yank it, guess what's gonna happen? Boop, those stitches are going to pop. I've done it on so many bags. So I've gotten into the habit of adding a couple rivets here just for added security. But the caveat with this type of webbing is you don't want to cut into it, because if you do, it's all woven. And if you snip it up here, eventually it's just going to start spreading through the whole thing. So what I would do to add a rivet to this section is I would punch my hole through the wax canvas, and then I would push it through the ribbon, what is it called? Webbing, the webbing itself, and like actually just separate it with the rivet. So I'm going to show you how I would do that on these top straps. Use my little rivet guide here to mark. This is a part of my zipper overlay template. I do a little tiny rivet guide. So I do 1 inch where it's 2 rivets, and then I also have 1.5 inch strap. So I'm going to use that. I'm lining it up with the edges of my webbing here. And I don't know if that's picking up on camera, but I just made 2 little marks here in my top fold. Now, if you want to, you can move them down a bit. It's totally up to you. Of course, I am just here to show you what I'm doing, and you can do whatever the HE double hockey sticks it is that you want. I'm just going to mark all of these holes first. So then I would take my post, stick it through the back here, and then I would just kind of finagle and wiggle it around until I could get it to come up through this webbing so that I didn't have to punch a hole through it. And it might take some work. There, just like that, and then I will repeat that for this one. With enough movement, you will get it to pop through. And I will do that for all the rest of mine. And then if you wanted to, you could even add a couple through here. But unfortunately, you will have to punch through this webbing. So might want to think about that. But if you're using regular webbing or cotton webbing, this won't be an issue. You don't have to worry about it. It's just these woven webbings that you need to be aware of that for. Massive thank you to all of you for following me this year through the 12 Days of Christmas Sewing series. I hope that you found some useful information and that you really enjoyed it. If you have any ideas for next year, I am all ears. Just drop them below, shoot me a DM, find me on Facebook. You can always access me on Patreon, so feel free to hop over there. All of that information is down in the description box, of course, as with everything else. I hope that you stick around and that you continue to create with me, and I look forward to seeing you again in 2024. Mwah.